So Jordan Peterson came. He's doing on tour. His first stop was here in Austin. Tex hit me up. I like that moment, went on, brought tickets. It was funny. I got kicked out of the system 3 times. Every time I got kicked back, we just getting pushed back. So finally I get tickets.
One comment. We couldn't ask actually for a better seating placement because it was you, me, and Dr. Kirk Parsley all sitting ducks in a row. And we're all jammed in there like airplane seats. So what do is the very last row on the bottom, we just broke apart the chairs and got our own space.
So yeah, we go, and as I show up, like all these dudes are like in suits. And when I tell you like a suit, like not the type of suit I just came from work, like the suit that I went home, took off my work clothes, took a shower, and put on this suit because I had this special suit to go out with. And like it was really weird. Like I mean, dudes,
3-piece suit.
Like there were some really like people went all out. Like, hey, I'm going to get a special suit for when Jordan Peterson comes, so I'm going to wear this suit so he notices me, type of deal. And maybe suit. I can. And I saw that people waited and got pictures with him. So I saw a couple people like he must have posed for pictures. I didn't see that part in the deal, but people were posing in their suits with Jordan Peterson to the point where he even brought it up and was like, I saw these guys, dressed really well in suits. And his daughter, Michaela Peterson, actually was like, oh, I didn't know that wearing suits was my dad's deal now. So I thought that was interesting. But these guys, man, everybody was dressed to the nines, and I didn't feel like we got the memo.
What were you wearing?
Jeans and T-shirts.
Seems accurate.
Yeah, I left practice, so sweats.
Yes.
But what was really cool was it's been cold here, so I can actually break out some of my cool jackets. So I did bust out my pea coat, which I was very happy about because my wife's like, are you going to throw that away? I'm like, no. There might be once a year I get to wear this pea coat.
I did just get myself a sweet leather jacket this year, too.
Nice.
Bomber style. Oh, yeah.
Sweet. I'm a huge fan of leather jackets and anything wool that looks like a pea coat.
Well, back to Peterson. You took some good notes. We've discussed this a little.
So, I did. I think it was a cultural event for a lot of reasons. Like, hey, we got a chance to see Jordan Peterson speak. I didn't get a chance to see him the first time around, and I always regretted that. So I didn't want to miss out on this one. It was extremely, like, I think that the magnitude of the event was probably overwhelming and a lot of buildup. I also think that his fitness in terms of his ability to get up and present there might have been on the low side because I know he's still sick, and he went through that. If you read his book, he was addicted to benzos and they put him in a coma. I mean, it's really pretty interesting in his book, but like it didn't look like. I mean, he got up there and he spoke for an hour. I was kind of hoping that he would go long form, but he had done a 4-hour podcast with Joe Rogan, so who knows how that thing all went down. But which I haven't listened to yet. But his fitness, I think, was a little bit low.
But he's going to cover 40, 50 dates this year.
Yeah.
The goal, the aim that he said was 120,000 people to connect with in person.
Yeah, that's impressive.
So that was, I think it was cool. We went to the first one out of the Austin trip in the whole.
So I think he's such an amazing thinker. I think for this generation, he's one of these unique thinkers. Not to put him in a Marcus Aurelius or a Seneca or any of the great thinkers. And he brought up Dostoevsky and some of this these different like existentialists. But I think in terms of going down, when we're going to look at cultural impact, I think you got Joe Rogan in his long form, and I think you got a guy like Jordan Peterson. And what's amazing to me is if you read his books, it's like the metaphor for clean your room, which. The one thing I was a little pissed about was people in the audience felt the need to like scream things out to somehow like interject themselves into it. And one of the guys screamed like, clean your room, which in his deal, like his book is like, it's the metaphor of don't go out and tell somebody else how to clean the room if your fucking house isn't in order, which, straight from the Bible in so many ways of like, don't cast, people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. Which is what he's saying. It's like, wake up every morning, clean your room, make your bed, stand up straight, be presentable, do these things before you go out and you try to order other people to live their lives. And so he's using it both physically or literally and metaphorically, like clean your fucking room. Don't be a slob. Like get up and make your bed every day. Like as your parents, like my mom would yell us, make her bed every day. If I get up and I don't make my bed, and if I walk in the middle of the day and my bed's not made, I make my bed. Like there's people that don't ever make their fucking bed. Make your bed.
And then they preach it too. I mean, I think that whole entire metaphor is just to live your life in integrity.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to tell somebody something, you better be doing it yourself as well.
Yeah. Which I think in our country and this present time, there's never been a time where we've been so disingenuous with this shit. I mean, we see it all the time, like within politics, where, they're standing, beating the war drum on something that just a month ago, they, like my favorite is the filibuster. Every one of these people have fought it, to and for the filibuster based on where they are within their political leanings and the political climate. I wrote down a couple of his statements. He said, you share ignorance with everyone around you. I thought that was a great comment. The idea that everybody's ignorant. And Joe Rogan, he even brought up, was extremely complimentary of Joe. But even Joe himself is like, I don't know if the people I'm bringing on are right or wrong. I don't know if they're being truthful or not. I'm just going and having an open-ended discussion with people that I believe to be experts that I'm trying to educate myself.
Free of judgment too, which is what I respect about Joe's podcast as well.
I think the fact that people are railing so hard against Joe Rogan just goes to prove the impact he's having in terms of opening people's eyes, that now the establishment has realized that exactly how influential this individual is, who does not fall within their paradigm of fucking pressure. And they're going to try to enact it. Like at the end of the day, he's such a wild card of these individuals and commands such respect that I don't think that they can have somebody that's outside the establishment with that much power.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's because he brings a lot of light to the inconsistencies and the incongruencies that are going on that just make the narrative crumble.
Yeah.
Right. He gets people to think.
Well, he's also a thinker, but he's also, not only is he an extremely fucking well-seasoned, excellent comic, which if you put I'll just give you an example. If you were to take a politician and a comic and put them on stage and have people call out and heckle them and how to work a crowd, dude, a comic any day of the week is 100% better than a politician. You can't rattle those dudes. You can throw hecklers. You can throw anybody you want into Joe Rogan. He can stand up there with drunks and 2 a.m. on a sunset and can handle a fucking crowd and fucking not only eviscerate them both, mentally and with his words, but also they want to come up and throw blows at dude to fucking hit you with a spinning back kick and knock you into the middle of next week. So it's not only, have you guys ever seen any gone and seen stand-up comedy? Mm-hmm. I love to go see stand-up comics. My favorite part is when the drunk asshole tries to heckle them and the fucking comics just open the bag of tricks and tear those dudes up, and then they get all butthurt and want to fight them. I'm like, this is the best. Why the fuck would you? That's like showing up to an NFL football game and jumping on the field and be like, I want to pass rush this 300-pound offensive lineman, and the dude breaks your neck and you're like, what an asshole. You're like, this is what this guy does. He's a paid thug who gets beat.
You brought it on yourself.
Yeah. So you have a guy like Rogan who's not only skilled in terms of stand-up comedy and orator, and he's intelligent. He's got a fucking little twisted thinking from whatever he's done with extracurriculars with drugs. So he's got an interesting perspective. And on top of it, the dude's a badass martial artist and has the ability, his Rolodex and the people he's had on. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's kind of like we talk on this podcast. As much as we want to put information out, we have really interesting people that I've been educated from, people where I've been inspired. And a lot of times, where we originally started it, I think I've benefited the most out of this podcast. Just because the people that we've allowed to create our genealogy and have on, every time we bring somebody on, I'm like, shit, dude, this is an opportunity to educate myself. We bring on Marcus Holman. I didn't even know about flow and bounce for fucking lacrosse players.
I feel like Keith Barr is a much better representation of that.
Keith Barr, dude, Boyd Epley,
which
was cool. Yeah, was cool as shit. I remember I was an 18-year-old kid sitting in his office in Nebraska and got a chance to have, met him 25, 27 years ago. So, another one. He said that if you're going to try to solve a problem, you have to formulate it into a question. And the biggest issue we're running into this in this country right now is the power structure fears this. They fear the formulation of questions because, that's what really Joe Rogan's doing, right? There's a problem. Let me bring people on and let's get to the root of this thing through long form discussion. And this is a big bit of fear. He also made a really good point with honesty on the edge is fear. So he said when honesty on the edge is fear, that that was just, so I'm just writing random things. He said, if you surround yourself with boring people, you're a boring person. So constantly fight to be in circles with interesting people, that the greatest barometer for yourself and whether or not you're interesting is if interesting people want to be around you. And he used that in Joe Rogan. He goes, Joe Rogan's a highly intelligent, very interesting people. Interesting people want to be in his company. If you look around and think everybody around you is boring and these people aren't interesting, it's because you're not interesting and you don't have anything to say.
Which we have control over too. You can control who
you can control your narrative. You can control your circle. I mean, problems are meant to be grappled. They are the call to they are a call to destiny, calling you to ignore problems is to lose the battle of your life. So that was kind of an interesting piece. He said that we're in a situation where the present day, or at least the way that things are looking, it's as if people are trying to bend the structures of reality to avoid their thoughts. So instead of like dealing and like having critical thoughts, people want to just bend the structures of reality to basically acquiesce to what they want.
Well, think about the fear associated with actually sitting with your own thoughts. It's scary shit.
So like, he was using it in the sense of like for example, I think on the podcast he was talking about like the Bible is the structure for everything. And my dad said this years ago. My dad said, the laws in this country are based off of Christian Anglo-Saxon or Anglo-Protestant, not Anglo-Saxon, Anglo-Protestant values. So you have these like set of structures that really come from the Bible, and turn the other cheek and this, and we set up to these laws. The problem is that everybody has to agree that this is the basis of which we're doing. And if that's not agreed upon and you don't subscribe to this, then how do these laws approach? Like for example, if I go out and I rob somebody or do something bad, the fear of going to jail has to be greater than actually executing this. Now, the problem is if jail is a better place than where you presently are, like, fuck it, if I rob this guy and get away, I'll have a better life. If I go to jail, it's probably better than I have. Then no longer jail becomes a deterrent. And so he goes, as a white middle-class kid, like, not that like you want to go out and do bad stuff, but like there's a way to be like, you know what? I might have a couple drinks. Maybe I won't drink and drive, because what if I get caught for drunk driving? I'm going to lose my license. I can't go to my job and I might go to jail. What if you don't give a fuck because you don't give a fuck if you go to jail? I'll get fucked up. What if I care? I don't kill anybody because I don't have a conscience for it. So my dad always said that's the most difficult thing when you're dealing with criminals and as a defense attorney, where people don't subscribe to your same core values or your belief system. And you're over here being like, well, you murdered that guy. Well, yeah, fuck it. Who cares? Right? Like, I mean, it's we're based off of this, like, Anglo-Saxon or Anglo-Protestant values. But what if you subscribe to Aleister Crowley's, law of the beast? Do as thou will. Well, fuck it. He has what I want. I'm going to kill him, and I'll take what he wants, because at the end of the day, fuck it. This whole thing is bullshit anyway. So it's that was an interesting piece. But what he was talking about, bending the structure of reality, is like, for example, you're born a man and you decide to become a woman, right? And now, or all of a sudden you don't become a woman, you just want to identify as a woman, and now you're forcing me, which goes back to like Ben Shapiro's deal. Mm-hmm. I shouldn't have to like change thousands of years of evolution just because you decide that you don't want that to be the reality now. So you can't bend reality.
Because then you're just worrying about potentially offending everybody.
Well, there's an interesting thing that I actually, I was thinking on this yesterday.
If you're easily offended, you're easily manipulated.
Yeah. So that's a big thing I've been thinking about in society, is that the way that they manipulate us is by trying to offend us. Because here's what they do. They, when I say, whoever it is, but it's a really easy way to like manipulate people, is to try to offend them. Because what you do is you say something and it pushes people to one side or the other. And really, like, that's how they're manipulating a guy like Joe Rogan right now. They didn't know how to manipulate him. So now what they're trying to do, and at the end of the day, he's probably like laughing to himself. Mm-hmm. He's like, all this is doing is probably driving up. I'm getting 11 million downloads an episode. This is probably going to drive it to 20 because people are going to be outraged. And now I've agreed to say, you know what? I'm going to bring on people that, I have this Robert Malone on. I'm going to bring the person on the other side. So now I'm going to open this thing up to more discourse, to more, contrarian views. All that's going to do is he's going to double his fucking viewer. This is probably like Ben Shapiro, I saw on Facebook, was like, why is he acquiescing? He doesn't owe these people anything. No, he's fucking intelligent, and whether he's doing it or he has somebody smart around him, it's like.
But he's also used this word already, he's holding himself in integrity, right? Because he is perpetuating discourse, which is how we arrive at better solutions to problems.
Now, here's another thing. I think what's really unique about him is, they always say, somebody owns everybody. Like, everybody answers to somebody. I bet you he doesn't. It's like, fuck him. You don't want to listen to my shit? I'll fucking do it. Believe me, I already made enough money. I could stop today and fucking go on and go open a Brazilian jiu-jitsu or a UFC comment. I mean, basically living the life that he wants to live. He's chosen to put himself in there because it's culturally relevant. It's important. And he probably views himself, to even...
part of his purpose and part of his mission in life is how it seems.
So after Jordan Peterson spoke, his daughter, asked people to send up questions. And so they had some portal for it. And the question that I had, I knew they weren't going to answer. So it was all, she kind of gave him softball stuff. Like, how do you know it's the right woman when you meet her? Which isn't the questions I wanted. Mm-hmm. I wanted like a straight up like Crime and Punishment. Dostoevsky, he wrote about the Superman phenomenon where in there Raskolnikov believed that the rules of society did not apply to him because he was of super character. He was considered a Superman. It's like one of the chief like fundamental themes of Crime and Punishment, Dostoevsky's book, and that existentialist. And being an existentialist, fan when I was in college, that was a huge thing and something I always thought about. And you have a situation in society. And my comment, or what I would have asked him, is: does the internet and really the rise of information and like people that now can have instant celebrity based upon viral TikTok, has that changed? And do you think if Dostoevsky got a chance to write Crime and Punishment, it would be written differently today? But I really think a guy like Joe Rogan, whether or not he believes himself to be an extraordinary man or not, has put himself in a position where he can be this culturally relevant and fucking alter the trajectory of a lot of things. I think that's fucking, with great power comes great responsibility. And I hope he fucking wields it to break this whole motherfucker down. I hope he uses it to fucking shatter the house, because unfortunately there's a lot of bullshit. And I think there's a lot of people that are being cold and being fucking manipulated with fear. They're easily offended, so they're easily manipulated. And I think just the fact that he's had people on that have a different point of view than the standard fucking narrative scares people to death. Because what if they really found out that this thing was full of shit? What if they really found out that they were manipulated? Because here's a bigger issue. He even said it in that talk when in his Instagram deal. He's like, 6 months ago, you had been kicked off social media if you said that a cloth mask didn't stop the transmission of COVID. Now it's on the cover of Time magazine. 6 months ago, if you'd said it came out of a lab, they'd fucking ban you. Now that we know that to be true. So what's going to happen in another 6 months? And, I just think that we're not being told the whole deal. And I think fucking Joe Rogan's going to have a burning sword to cut through it. And I fucking support him for it. The one thing that was unique, or the quote that, or the piece of information that I wrote down that was most prevalent to me in hearing him speak was men need heroes and icons to follow. So I think a lot of times that was like seeing the excitement. There was a father and son that were sitting 2 rows ahead of us. Like the giddiness and the excitement of these 2 individuals to be there, and like the way that I was just watching these dudes and they were like randomly screaming things. Like I was like, this is probably their fucking Super Bowl. Like it's interesting to me that we've come to a time where people need icons and heroes to follow in a time when they maybe feel that those are absent. I mean, you think about something to emulate, and Jordan Peterson is an extremely interesting thinker. Mm-hmm. The way his mind works is really fascinating, and the way he puts things together. I mean, he's really, really very intelligent individual. And I think people are drawn to that. I think people are drawn to unique individuals and especially unique thinkers. I mean, it's why if you go back to ancient Greece with, the Cynics and Seneca, and you have, Plato and Aristotle and these individuals, like they would stand in the middle and speak, whether it be within, an amphitheater or this, or, the steps here or there, and people would sit around and listen to them because people have always been entranced by intelligent thinkers.
Yeah. It's how they resonate, right?
Yeah.
It's because it challenges you to think yourself as well. And that's where, if we look at exploration, we talk about exploration of movement all the time. When you ask questions, you're exploring other avenues to a problem. And I think that's where in today's time, today's society, we see people who don't want to critically think. They don't want to have to use their brain power to solve a problem. They just want to be told what to do.
Well, because it's at the end of the day, if you're wrong, it's somebody else's fault.
And you can place blame, and now you become the victim again.
Yeah, and we live in a victim mentality where, for example, and we have a ton of people following our training programs at powerathletehq.com/training if you want to check them out. But on those programs, The reason that we have thousands of people logging onto those programs is because they have faith in us and me as an individual who's done this before, and like the amount of progress that people make. And I think that there's, it's nice to like, hey, like I get bored of programming for myself. So I follow other people's training and I, am constantly testing stuff. But at the end of the day, like I don't make any illusions. At the end of the day, I'm the final end product and I make the decision. But like, I think it's nice to kind of like free yourself to do other things and hand the reins over to experts. The problem is a lot of times people are willing to hand hand things over to people that aren't experts. Oh, I handed my money over to this financial advisor. Is he qualified? I don't know. He's a financial advisor. He seems like he's pretty good. Well, what clients does he have? Who has he worked with? Is he successful? What's the market? Like what strategy is he following? Oh, I don't know. He's just a financial advisor. I went with him. I don't know. You got to have more than that. So I think like a lot of times for people, there's you basically are able to separate yourself from guilt and failure by just handing the reins over and being like, well, I'm just doing what the government told me. At the end of the day, when did people become so trusting of the government? I mean, like shit, like, we have all these conspiracy theories from UFOs to, Area 51 to the Kennedy assassination. I mean, anything that Oliver Stone's ever done just goes to point to show some nefarious, government. I mean, every plot of every Jason Bourne movie is the same. I mean, dude, you want to look at the largest theft of the American people, look at like the Federal Reserve Act.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the Jason Bourne franchise. But
right. Okay. But I mean, like look at the Federal Reserve Act.
I kid.
Right. The Federal Reserve is not federal, and it's not a reserve. It's a private entity. And they're the ones that control everything. I mean, it's crazy to me. All right. He also said Rogan is on the or he said, he goes, the reason that Joe Rogan is so successful is he's on the edge of ignorance at all times. Right. He said that he shows up curious and has the ability to have his opinion changed on a moment's notice. So he goes in to have these conversations without preconceived notions. He's not driving it in a certain way where he wants the outcome in a certain way. Like it's not canned. He's going in there, hey, this guy's going to talk about this. And then Joe, who's an intelligent individual, I don't know what research he does, but he goes in as almost to be educated by these people, which is kind of the guy who's Larry King. Mm-hmm. Where Larry King would go and interview people and he wouldn't do any research so that he could be educated on it. Which, there's certain people, like a lot of times when you get interviewed by a reporter or different stuff, they've done a ton of research and they start canning questions because they're trying to get you to say something specific. Larry King, Joe Rogan, I think they're just looking for open narratives.
Yeah, I think like there's a lot of value in being flexible and being malleable, but that's why, guys like us, and I think Joe as well, you go into every conversation, and including me with going to this sheepdog response course, it's you use the line all the time about being in a white belt mentality.
Yeah.
But it's also going in there as the person who knows nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
it opens you up.
Well, it opens you up, but
makes you receptive as well.
Well, and it's also I think people that are well skilled and the people that probably teach that class have gone in and fucking dealt with so many people that come in with their own preconceived notions and this isn't the way I do it. And you go in just like an empty cup. Like, we've said for years, like, how can I pour water in your cup? How can I fill your cup if it's already full? Empty your cup and then allow me to fill yours. And that, age old Bruce Lee analogy, empty your cup. And I think when you go in and you show yourself to be humble and it's like, man, I want to get my ass kicked. I want to learn as much as possible. I paid the money. I want to go on the fucking ride. You're the fucking ringmaster. Take me on the fucking ride and kick my ass and let's have some fun. And that was, Craig, paid me a good compliment when I went to his deal. He's like, man, you showed up as advertised. And even when I told him, he was like, when I saw him the other day, he was like, man, I posted.
Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, Jordan Peterson, because we saw Craig Douglas, fucking great guy. If you have a chance to take his class, it's incredible. He was like, yeah, man, people saw you were there. And he's like, one dude was like, did he show up with a shield? And he's like, why? He's like, that guy's like Captain America. And I was like, thanks. That's a fucking good compliment. I like Captain America. He's like, no, man. Like people were like stoked. Like they were like fucking amazed that you would show up to him. Like, why wouldn't I? You asked me to come and I'm going to show up and to give you 100%. And dude, I don't know what you know. So fucking fill my cup. And I think that analogy or that piece it's been helpful to not only, I think Let me see how to say this without saying it weird. I think that is an extremely endearing thing when somebody shows up and they're humble and they want to learn. And as somebody who wants to teach or somebody that has information to give, when somebody takes that approach, you will fucking be like, man, and like, we have Tim Kennedy on the podcast. He'd be like, fucking Zanis is great. That guy showed up. I mean, I hope he says this. Shows up.
He was a little bitch.
Yeah. I mean, but like if you show up, one, you paid the money, you showed up, you humbled yourself, and you said, fucking show me what you got. Give me your best and I'll fucking take it. He said, two more. He said, shake your fist at your sky and curse God, which I thought was interesting. Just randomly said it, and I like the way he said it. But he said, be honest, be brave, and be playful. And it struck me for the first time what Jordan Peterson, the way, because I had this kind of picture of him in my mind a little bit, but he kind of reminds me of like a wise, eloquent uncle who you look forward to seeing every Christmas. Like he's well dressed, he has something interesting to say. And like I was thinking as a kid, like showing up at Christmas or like meeting our family or, uncles or whatever. And like having these guys be, larger than life, entertaining, but he just seems like a wise dude that you like well dressed, sits down and has something amazing to say. And you excited to see him at every family reunion or every family event. Yeah.
It's like an energy you want to be around.
Yeah.
Because it fills you up.
Yeah. He's an interesting dude. I was really interested to see the dynamic with his daughter. Like she was, obviously he's got her kind of coming out, opening up. And I know she has a podcast, and I don't know her, but like it's I feel like it's a large billing for her to have to come up and like, be the opening act for her father. So like good on her for going out there and being her father's daughter and taking that upon herself. She felt a little, but maybe it was her first one. She just felt a little nervous in that she doesn't do it. But I wish her a lot of success with that.
Well, there was a lot of people there.
Yeah.
A lot of
and people were excited, man.
Nervous, yeah.
Well, the people were excited to be in his presence, and I always think, man, that's like a really interesting thing where people are just excited to be there and say they were there. We saw Lindsay Matthews and her husband. We saw Craig Douglas. There was a bunch of people that we didn't see that I ended up seeing posting pictures on social media who were there. So it was like a very cool culturally relevant event to be at. And man, I was stoked to see him get up there and speak because I was nervous that after what he went through, he would never get up and do this again. Mm-hmm. But I wished, my only critique was I wish it was more structured. Like he talked about his new book, which is
Wrestling with God.
Yeah, Wrestling with
Something
God.
like that.
Yeah, I wish he would have got into a little bit of that because he's like, I'm working on this new book called Wrestling with God. When you throw that name out there,
it's a powerful
title. Yeah. Like, tell me about the book. Get into it like that. Like if he had been like got up and talked about his new book, Wrestling with God, and the pieces that he's working through in this, and that had been the structure which he spoke from, I think that would have been incredible. It was, but it felt very just like, let's just have this conversation. It was great. But me personally, I would have liked to have felt a little more structured, and I would have, I wish I could have brought my dad. It would have been nice to go and hear that. And and not like, I sent him some of Jordan Peterson's stuff before he passed away. I don't know how much he read, but, I was trying to get him into listening to podcasts, but I would have liked to have heard, his interpretation of the information, whether or not he just thought he was full of shit or a blowhard or whatnot. But, I really enjoyed it and I thought it was great. So what'd you think, Mr. McQuilkin?
Well,
we got
a few more minutes. Extremely enjoyable experience. Good company as always. Doc's a excellent conversation. Our long ride home. The only critique I have, I'll call them hecklers, because he was, as you mentioned, not conditioned.
Yeah.
Because he was on awesome trains of thoughts, and then there was these moments where people would shout out. I thought that was very selfish of him. And then he acknowledges them. And then lost for a moment, like
his train of thought.
So that was the negative piece, dude. So like, if you do go in the future, shut the fuck up.
Do you think that may? Do you think that's why it felt cut up because he wasn't ready for the hecklers?
Potentially. I wouldn't be either. Like, what?
It breaks the chain.
What you remember from the old CrossFit football days? So when I first started, as I was talking, people would shoot their hands up. And I would tell everybody, hey, wait to the very end to ask your questions because I didn't have the confidence in the material. Then I got to the point where I was confident in the material. When somebody raised their hand, I would stop, fucking curb stomp them, and then continue on without missing a beat because I knew the material. So what I don't think he was ready for, and you made a good point, was I don't think he was people like, so the social media or whatever it is, like everybody wants to somehow like be on stage with him. Everybody wants to interject and be into what he was doing. And I felt like the people screaming were their desire to interject themselves into what he was doing. And it did. I mean, I think it fucking rattled him a little bit.
Yeah.
Like he didn't feel offended, but it was like his train of thought, like he's up there trying to have this beautiful moment and a dude screams, "Clean your room." And he was like,
well, yeah, he positively acknowledged him. And then it was a few other times where like a comedian who's done their set, stop for one moment. Okay, I'm going to curb stomp you.
Yeah.
And then continue the joke.
Have you ever watched anything by Jimmy Carr? He's an English comic.
Oh yeah. He's hosts a lot. Yeah, he's a good guy. He's funny.
He fucking dude. Have you ever heard him?
I don't want to get off.
Have you ever heard him deal? Have you ever heard him deal with hecklers?
No, but
dude,
now I will.
Go check out some of Jimmy Carr's stuff, dude. He can just eviscerate, just does so well. But like as a comic, like that's the first thing that those guys learn because they go on stage and they suck. And it's the age old, Dave Grohl, you got to go in the band, suck, and then you become Nirvana. Those guys go on stage, they do open mics, they do the 2 a.m. with the drunks on Sunset, and like they fucking hone their craft to the point where some dickhead gets into it. That's what these guys fucking live for. That's their battle cry. And you have a guy like Rogan, who is a fucking seasoned comic. I mean, a fucking Fear Factor. I mean, all these things. That's what that guy does. And you're going to put this dude in this situation. This guy's been training for it for his whole life. And on top of it, he can throw fucking hands and whoop just about anybody's ass if he wants. So you have a dude that's not only skilled, like with his words and that, also has the ability to use his hands and has the fucking largest, most powerful platform. I mean, dude, the fact that his information is more influential than any news broadcast or any news outlet, he's getting more hits than CNN and all these other people. Fuck, that's incredible. Good on him. I feel like a meathead is at the top because he seems like a fucking meathead.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's got a Stornex gym and he fucking swings kettlebells and he likes to, dude, he's legitimately fits within that circle. Dude likes to eat steak. He likes to kill shit, Cameron Haynes and the whole deal. Like, fuck, man, good on him. And I'm stoked that somebody like us is in that position of power because I know he'll wield that fucking sword, that flaming sword.
Yes, and the appreciated comments he made on leadership, essentially opening yourself up even as a person in a position of authority to then still allow yourself to be mentored by those you're leading, or open yourself. And then he referenced the same respect to within the house. So say a father in the house working on allowing themselves to be loved. So the same, mechanisms and components in place as a leader and then as the authority figure within your home, rather than what a lot of us men out there are used to as non-love in the home, not saying love you and things like that.
Yeah, you need to be able to be assertive and surrender at the same time.
And
yin
working on
and
that.
yang.
Wasn't it, it was Chris Rock that made the interesting point where he's like, men are only appreciated if they can provide. Everybody loves and takes care of women and children. Men only have value as long as they can provide something. The minute they can't provide, they no longer have, have value. And I think what Jordan Peterson was talking about is, you always have value as long as you give yourself value and you value yourself. So,
yeah. And skill of opening yourself up for that. It's a long way of saying do some more cocky walks at practice.
Dude, I think, I think we've been in a really interesting time because for so long, there's been this kind of standard narrative. And because individuals that controlled that narrative controlled the way that we absorbed information. And now we have this deal, which is information can be absorbed by anybody who's putting it out because it's so easily digestible. What it's done is it's because of all that noise, I think what we've seen interesting people like a Jordan Peterson rise to the top. And what's amazing, having read both of his books, which Mr. McQuilkin provided me on Christmas presents, which thank you, which allowed me to read all Jordan Peterson stuff.
Cheers.
So what's been fascinating to me is you'll hear people be like, oh, he's a white supremacist or a misogynist. And I've heard all these negative pieces. And as an intelligent individual, having read his books and heard him speak and having been there, I'm like, I can't even I like to believe empathy is the idea of like, I can put myself in your position to try to see your point of view. One of the first things they teach you in rhetoric is if you want to argue against somebody, the first thing you have to do is walk a mile in their shoes and understand their point of view from their argument. If you understand where that person's coming from, then you can effectively defeat their argument. I can't even fucking see where their shoes are when they say that stuff. I've not heard a single thing like, and then when people be like, oh, he's a piece of shit, like talk shit on him, he's an intelligent thinker and a thoughtful man. Like, you're going to shit on that guy for that? For what reason? Like, give me something exactly he said.
Do you think it's like an intimidation factor?
I think we're in a really interesting time where I think people don't have the ability to think for themselves. So it's a lot easier just to like digest what the next guy pushes them. And I think people aren't willing to do the work. I think that like if I don't like somebody, it's easier just to not like them for what somebody else said than to dive in and be like, I don't like this guy, but I'm going to figure out why I don't like him. I'm going to read both of his books. I'm going to listen to him talk, and I'm going to read something he's written, and I'm going to pretend to, or I'm going to put myself in the situation to be a fan of this individual to actually give them an honest shake. Like the fact that people like rip on Joe Rogan and they're like, guys, like I would never listen to a podcast. He's a piece of shit. Well, how would you know unless you listen to his podcast? Right? Like I like him as a UFC commentator. I like him. I remember him from Fear Factor. I've heard his stand-up. His stand-up was good.
And that goes back to being influenced by the people that you surround yourself with the most, right? People probably hear a narrative on him or an opinion on him. It's easy just to accept that as truth because your closest friends, your closest people surrounding you are telling you that. So rather than waste any energy to go out and search for yourself and think for yourself, it's easier just to accept it.
So what are some action items that we could sum all this up and have people take away to go think for themselves?
I think you have to go to powerathlete.com or powerathletehq.com/training. I'm fucking it up today. So powerathletehq.com/training. And I want you to check out some training programs. And if you're really interested in learning more about how to heal your back and really just improve your performance, you need to go to academy.powerathletehq.com and check out the foot course, the back course, methodology, and all this. And if you're really interested in this conversation and you want to inject more, you can always reach out to our hotline, 929-464-464.
0.
929-ING-ING.
0.
And you can leave us a question on the hotline. You can also reach out to @PowerAthleteHQ on social media, and you can shoot us a DM. I probably won't see it because I don't have access to that account. But if you want to get my opinion on something, @John Wellborn, you can also reach @McQuilkin or @Rooted in Movement.
Yes. And John, I'm going to throw this out there. I have a blog suggestion for you based off title alone. Clean Your Own Gym by John Wellborn.
So he was talking about Western Canada, and he was also talking about Northwest Canadian art, and he was talking about like that deal. As you know, through my whole house, because my grandfather, Vancouver, used to sail his boat up and down all through there, up into past Nanaimo and up into Bowen Island and all that, collected all that stuff. And so when he started talking about Western Canada and especially like that culture, that's always been very near and dear to my heart. So there was just the thing I appreciate about him, thoughtful man, well-dressed, interesting conversation. And the fact that he brought his daughter on to open for him just showed like the fact that he's puts his trust in his family. Very easy could have had other people, but wanted to put her in that situation and help her along. Good on him. I don't think he has any. I think she's his only child.
No, he also has his son.
Oh,
she's the oldest. Yeah,
she's the oldest. So yeah, good on him, man. But yeah, he has my respect, and I think it was a good, excellent opportunity. But I'll tell you, I think 2024, Joe Rogan for president. I'm voting him in. I'm gonna write him in.